think we are going to go live in just a couple more seconds. All right, so we are live on Facebook. Welcome everyone to this webinar. Good morning to those who are in North America, and good evening to those who are joining us from India and Pakistan. My name is Nikhil Mandalaparthi, and I'm the Advocacy Director with Hindus for Human Rights. Just a little bit about us. We are a Washington, D.C. based nonprofit organization that was founded 2 years ago in 2019. And we advocate for pluralism, civil rights, and human rights for all in South Asia and North America. And in particular, we provide a Hindu voice of resistance to caste, to Hindu nationalism or Hindutva, to racism and all forms of bigotry and oppression. And we are really, really excited to welcome you all to today's event, Youth Power for Social Justice, an interactive conversation with 3 very esteemed speakers, Professor Rajmohan Gandhi, actress Richa Chadha, and Dr. Simran Jeet Singh. I personally am 24 years old, so a little bit out of the age range that we talked about for today's event, but I still see myself as a youth, and I am really excited to hear from each of our speakers who has been working for social justice in each of their areas of work for many, many years. And we have received registrations for this event from across the United States, from India and from Pakistan. And we have viewers who are joining us today here on Zoom, as well as more viewers on Facebook Live. And how this event is going to work is that we will begin by hearing from each of our speakers, who will share some reflections for about 5 to 7 minutes about what inspires them to work for social justice in their own lives and what they wish they could tell to their younger selves, and of course to the youth today. So while we're hearing from each of our speakers, please feel free to submit some questions in the Q&A box below. It should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if you're watching on Facebook, you can submit a question just by commenting. After we hear from all 3 of our speakers, we'll open it up to question and answer with all of you. And if you've submitted a question on Zoom, we will invite you up as a panelist so we can see you on camera and you can ask your question live. So now I will stop talking, and I'm very excited to welcome 2 of our youth leaders, Amina Ahmed and Samara Desai. Earlier this year, we partnered with Indian American Muslim Council to organize a civil rights essay and art contest. And Amina and Samara were 2 of our high school and middle school winners. And they're also regular volunteers with Hindus for Human Rights. So Amina and Samara will be introducing our speakers. And I also want to give a shout out to another of our summer interns, Sanjana, who's also in the audience and helped make this event possible. And so now to introduce our first speaker, Professor Rajmohan Gandhi, I invite Amina to take it away.
Thank you so much, Nikhil. It is my absolute honor to introduce our Professor Rajmohan Gandhi, who's a historian, biographer, journalist, and peacemaker. Professor Gandhi divides his time between India and the United States, where he currently serves as research professor at the College of Education, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Rajmohan Gandhi's last book, published in December 2018, is Modern South India, a history from the 17th century to our times. He's authored over a dozen other books, including Gandhi, The Man, His People, and the Empire, Punjab, A History from Aurangzeb to Mountbatten, and Patel, A Life. In the 1990s, Rajmohan Gandhi served as a member of the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of the Indian Parliament. Through writing, speaking, public interventions, and dialogue, he's been engaged for 60 years in efforts for reconciliation and democratic rights. An absolute pleasure and honor to introduce Rajmohan Gandhi.
Thank you, Amina. Thank you very much. I appreciate those very kind and generous words. And I greet everyone watching. I greet Nikhil and Samara and Richa, Simran Jeet, everybody else. Now, I want to speak of an incident that occurred a long time ago in 1951, when I was 16 years old, and I was staying with my siblings and parents in an apartment in New Delhi. My father was the editor of New Delhi's leading newspaper, the Hindustan Times. The apartment where we lived was right above the offices and printing press of the newspaper. There was a knock on the door, which I opened. A journalist needed to see my father, who was at home. In the journalist's hand was a sheet of the teleprinter that he wished to show my father. I read the sheet as he came in. It said, quote, Liaquat Ali Khan, Prime Minister of Pakistan, has been shot at. MTF, unquote. I knew that MTF meant more to follow. I said to this journalist, I hope what follows is a line that reads, Liaquat Ali Khan is dead. I thought I'd made a clever remark, but the journalist did not smile. He frowned. I realized I had said something stupid. Why did I say it? Because enjoying Pakistan's misfortune was a popular sport in India. Liaquat Ali Khan was the Prime Minister of Pakistan. That seemed sufficient reason for me to take pleasure in his likely death. Later, I realized that there was a second reason for my terrible remark. I was a boy turning into a man, and I wanted to sound macho. Realizing the shallowness of my thinking, I told myself, I must find a better way. A time came much later in the 1980s when I wrote a book, Understanding the Muslim Mind, which portrayed the lives of 8 outstanding Muslim leaders of the Indian subcontinent. Liaquat Ali Khan is one of them. Muhammad Ali Jinnah is another. Abul Kalam Azad is a third. Allama Iqbal is a fourth. The book has been published in several languages and countries, including in Pakistan. I'm glad it remains in print and is still read quite widely. Perhaps some of you will read it. I wrote the book not to praise some people and blame others, but to understand the Hindu-Muslim story in the last century and a half, and to find a truthful basis for reconciliation and partnership in South Asia. If we wish to find out the true story of those we disagree with, or dislike, or have an allergy to, it is helpful to listen to them, to read about them. To hold opinions without knowledge only extends childish foolishness into old age. Now, another point. Why does Father Stan Swami stir us? He was a Tamilian who served tribals in Jharkhand, a far place for him. He was a Christian priest who helped people of other religions or of no religion. He was a highly educated man who served the deprived, the forgotten, the exploited. Handicapped in health, he forgot his ailments as he helped fellow prisoners. Kept behind bars, he thought of people facing even greater hardship than he faced. His death in prison has made Father Stan Swami a symbol of the Indian conscience. He will not go away. Dear friends, when I was a boy and a young man, people like me made mistakes, but we breathed in India the air of freedom, the air of equality, of mutual respect. It was clear from the conversations, songs, poems, dramas, films, and dances of that time that India belonged equally to all who lived in India. We knew that someone who was poor or weak or female, Dalit or Adivasi or Muslim, Buddhist, Sikh, Christian, or atheist was an Indian of the same equal value as a rich Hindu from the highest caste. That India seems to be slipping away. But it'll come back. Why am I sure of that? Because the human conscience is greater even than the Himalayas. The Himalayas are magnificent and breathtaking, but they're also vulnerable. The conscience of human beings is deathless. It cannot be killed. It cannot be silenced. It is the gift to us of the eternal, almighty, deathless, universal God, who has many names, but who remains the same, eternal, almighty God. The conscience is my richest possession. It is your richest possession. It was Father Stan Swami's richest possession. God has his own timetable. Meanwhile, he wants every Indian, every Pakistani, every Chinese, every African, every American, and everyone else to treat fellow humans with friendship and respect. Ishwar Allah Tere Naam. Sabko Sanmati De Bhagwan.
Thank you so much, Professor Gandhi, for sharing those reflections from your time as a youth and how you see India transforming today and how we can all be part of that change to bring back those values of pluralism and respect for each other. At this point, I'd like to welcome our next youth leader, Samara, to introduce our second speaker, Richa Chadha. Or actually, my apologies. I'd like to welcome Amina to introduce Dr. Simran Jeet Singh, and then we will hear from Richa shortly after.
Thank you so much, Nikhil. And again, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Simran Jeet Singh, who's recognized among Time Magazine's 16 people fighting for a more equal America. Simran Jeet Singh is Senior Advisor for Equity and Inclusion at YSC Consulting and a visiting professor at Union Seminary. He's a 2020 Equality Fellow with the Open Society Foundations and a Senior Fellow for the Sikh Coalition. This past year, Simran added author to his resume with the release of his best-selling children's book, Fauja Singh Keeps Going, the true story of the oldest person to ever run a marathon. He's currently completing an adult nonfiction book entitled More of This Please, Sikh Wisdom for the Soul. Growing up as a turban-wearing, brown-skinned, beard-loving Sikh in South Texas, Simran learned early that marginalized groups will not lecture their way into dignity and that empathy is truly built when people get to know each other as human beings. This realization is what brought him into the deep work of empathy building as an approach of personal development and social change. We welcome Simran Jeet Singh.
Thank you for that, and thank you all for being with us today in a topic that I care a lot about, and I'm excited to always find other people who care about these same issues. Yeah, I'll start by saying I was born and raised in the United States, in San Antonio, Texas, and looking the way that I did, looking the way that I do, meant that we dealt with racism often. I was 11 the first time someone called me a terrorist. I was in middle school. Our club soccer team had a game near Dallas, Texas, and during our pregame equipment checks, the referee came straight to me and demanded that I let him pat down my turban. He said something like, "Hey, little terrorist, you're not hiding bombs or knives in there, are you? I know how you people like to blow stuff up." And I was so furious that I wanted to punch him. My fists clenched tightly and my body tensed up too. But in that moment, I decided to lean my head forward instead. I'd never before let someone touch my turban, but I wanted to play and I was a kid and I didn't really feel like I had a choice. Now, what's interesting about this experience for me is that it's happened over and over again throughout my life. And there's a particular moment soon thereafter where I started to learn about how I wanted to deal with situations like this and some really simple principles that shaped my own social justice. And it's a particularly interesting account because it's one that I learned not just through my own experience, but with my family. My parents moved to the States in the 70s. I have 3 brothers, so there's 4 of us in total, very close in age. And we used to all go everywhere together when we were growing up. And so my older brother's class party in 5th grade, we walk into a roller skating rink. His whole class is there, his teachers, their parents. And as soon as we walk in, the manager says we have to get out of there. He wants to kick us out. And, you know, we had dealt with these sorts of things, including the story that I just shared. And so we let our mother go deal with it. So she walks over and we walk away. And she's talking to the manager. And after about 10 minutes, we're getting antsy to go skate with our friends. And it was a, you know, it wasn't stressful, but it wasn't pleasant. We were there to have fun, and we weren't having fun. And so I went over to my mother and I pulled on her kameez. You know, she was wearing salwar kameez in her Punjabi style. And so I pull on her kameez from the back, and she turns around and she's crying. And I'd never seen her cry before, and I start crying too. And I didn't know why she was crying. But I just started crying, and she asked me what was going on. And I said, it's not fair. They should let us skate. You know, isn't that the same reason you're crying? Isn't that obvious? And she said, no, I'm crying because we're lucky. And I was confused, right? I didn't know why she would think we were lucky. And then she said, you know, the whole group, the parents, the teachers, and the students have all agreed that we are going to walk out together. And I was stunned for a moment. I didn't really know what that meant. But as I realized it, I realized this was the first time that I felt like people in my community were there for me, that they had my back. And over the years, I look back on this moment and recognize so many lessons in this experience that have shaped my activism. And I just want to share these with you because I think they're really simple principles from which we can all draw. And also, one of the things you'll learn is as you grow and mature in your activism, in social justice, these principles, they don't go away. In fact, they strengthen you over time, and they grow internally and make you stronger. And so here are some of the reflections that I've had over the years. The first is, you know, my mother, she was clear about her principles. The easiest thing to do for her was to say, okay, if they're not allowed to skate with turbans on, then let's take the turbans off and let them skate. It didn't even register for her as an option because she was clear on what her values were and where she wanted to go with this. Right, so that's number one. But the second most easy response, and the one that I feel is probably most natural to me, is to say, okay, you don't want us to be here, we'll leave. The four of us, you know, the boys and me, we'll walk out. And you know, it feels like an easier response because you don't have to involve anyone else. You don't make anyone feel bad. You just say, you know, you all enjoy the party and we'll walk out and do. But the challenge there is nobody wins. Nobody gets anything out of that situation. Our family would have walked away frustrated, and our classmates would have never learned anything. So what did she do instead? She said, let me invite other people to know what's going on. Let me invite them into the conversation and let them make their choice, right? She didn't force anybody to do anything. She said, let me just share what's going on and see what people want to do. In our belief, my belief and my family's belief and the Sikh belief is that people are good, that they want to help, but a lot of times they just don't know what's going on. So by making them aware, she gave them the opportunity to care. She created the condition for solidarity just by telling people what was happening. So this was, I think, a really powerful lesson for me. And the third is very closely tied to this, right? Not just how do you create community and solidarity, but being on the receiving end of it, feeling that support from my friends and their parents and my teachers. Of course I felt happy, right? Like I wasn't happy because the situation was terrible, right? I wish it didn't happen, but I felt trust in the people around me. I wanted to help them because they had helped me, right? This is how you create relationships. And so being on the receiving end of solidarity then makes you want to be part of a world where you are being in solidarity with others and supporting them when times are tough for them. And I'll say, I still remember the teachers. We're still in touch with a lot of our friends that year because we've deepened our relationships through this experience and standing together. And that's made us all stronger over time. So those are the three big takeaways, I think, that I wanted to share with you all today. being clear about your principles and knowing where you will stand when push comes to shove. That's one. Another one is showing up for one another and giving people the opportunities to show up for you. Right? Just telling people what's going on, making them aware, making them conscious. And three, being in solidarity with other people, recognizing the value of it for yourself and understanding that no one will do it if you're not doing it initially, right? And that's how all of this works. So those are my reflections, and I'm looking forward to more with you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simran, for sharing those reflections and experiences, which I think many of our youth attendees who have grown up here and maybe their families have come from India or Pakistan or other countries, that tension between, you know, what our parents might think is the best thing to do and what we feel like we want to do here. It's really important to learn how to navigate that. And thank you for sharing some of those reflections. At this point, I'm excited to bring our other youth leader, Samara, to introduce our third and final speaker for today, Richa Chadha. So Samara, take it away.
Popular among the masses for her versatile roles, Richa Chadha is a Bollywood actress who began her career as a model, moving to theater and eventually appearing in big productions on the silver screen. Her breakthrough role came in the year 2012 when she was cast in Arun Kap's film Gangs of Wasseypur. Richa Chadha made her debut in the lead drama Masan in 2015, which also stars Vicky Kaushal and was screened in the Cannes Film Festival. Richa is known as an actor who uses her platform for important social and political issues, and we are excited to welcome her today.
Can you see me? Hi, everybody. Thank you for introducing me. It's been a pleasure to listen to Simran and Professor Saab speak. I'm very honored to be here. It makes me really happy that there are people around the world who are committed to the cause of humanity above all. And I'm especially grateful to Hindus for Human Rights, because at a time like this, it is really important to come together and express voices of solidarity. Otherwise one feels isolated in the current climate. So I don't really have any lessons, but I can talk about my own life with examples I think people might relate to. I'm trying to keep it as simple as I can. I don't have accomplishments like books and all that I've written, so I'll just say what I have to. When I was very little, my family faced some persecution. It was due to my identity. I don't want to delve into that, but we had to flee from a city where I was born and move to an entirely new city. My parents had to start their life all over again. I was too young to fully understand what was happening, but I think of people like batter and eggs. If you cook, you know what I mean. When you put a hard egg in a shell on a flame, it boils and becomes soft. And when you take really soft batter and you put it on a flame, it can become hard, or it can get cooked. So people respond in a similar way, I think. Some people deal with trauma or persecution with trying to return the favor and indulging in some kind of revenge or tit for tat. And whereas other people will choose the exact opposite, because that experience would have brought to life inside their being the value of empathy. Empathy is what distinguishes us from several other species, although I don't know if that is a scientific fact or not. But when people are attacked they have the option to either choose love or become one of the hateful mob. And I'm proud to say that my family um, is liberal, fiercely secular, gave me all the freedom I needed to blossom into the woman I am today. And from that, I learned a lot. And that has only helped me in my life. Over the past year or so, I have been evaluating a very personal thing. I've been trying to see if outrage is a sustainable political weapon. It is indeed when you are on social media and your noise can help, remove somebody from a platform who is being hateful or who's inciting violence. But long term, what is it that creates an alternative to the existing thing that you don't like, whether it is a political party, a particular leader, a style of governance, dictatorship, lack of human rights, lack of overall equality? And what I have come to realize, especially in the lockdowns, the one last year and now, is that democracy eventually becomes a battle of culture. The difference between a country like, well, I can't say that anymore, but the difference between a truly democratic country and one that isn't truly democratic or is in some kind of autocracy or in a communist dictatorship or in a religious autocracy is freedom of expression. So I have come to understand it as the fact that the battle for democracy is truly a battle of culture. And in that, I try to do my job as an artist, um, to humanize not just my characters, but to overall see how my voice can help build a culture which is truly democratic. Because everything we see is a symptom. If there's rising violence against minorities or against Dalits or women in India, it is a reflection of a Sikh society. We need to heal society, and we can only do that when we, like Professor Saab said, when we build consensus, when we listen to each other. I mean, building consensus was one of the key things that RGB spoke about in her life. And that is something which I'm today hoping to do, by amplifying stories of positivity and goodness of people, talking about people, everyday heroes doing extraordinary things, who are uh, somebody who set up a little oxygen ambulance in their auto rickshaw in Bhopal uh, during the month of Ramzan and ferried people to and fro, free of cost, to different hospitals in order to find beds. Or, uh, for instance, the day that Stan Swami died, we covered the story of a little 11-year-old girl from Jharkhand who started teaching all the younger children in her society, in her village, which was a tribal village where online classes weren't really possible, um, and started teaching them math and English. And soon the Gram Panchayat built them a platform and things. So this is a little initiative I run called the Kindry now, which is about amplifying stories of kindness. Because what do we do? Attacking the existing establishment or the regime is something that critics, journalists, and people always do, and it is right to critique people for their wrongdoing and to call them out. But what kind of alternative are we building as a society? What is it that we would like to see? Because the true revolution in any species, in any construct, in any society, in any people, is when there is a mental revolution, when there is evolution of consciousness, when one can realize that humanity is above all and all these differences are truly senseless. You don't dislike somebody because are bigger than yours, but you can on them or even murder them because the color of their skin is different from yours, or because they believe in a book different from yours, or what you've been told to believe. A lot of people ask me, "Are you a proud this and that?" And I'm like, I want to be proud of things that that I had something to do with. how you're born, where you're born, in which community, in which class, in which gender, in which family, rarely has anything to do with you. I don't want to take credit for that. If I want to build something that I can truly be proud of, I want to build a society where we are not chasing money in the most unconscious autopilot fashion, where we truly realize the value of human life and what a gift it is, and where we can contribute. And this is what I have come to understand, that I don't think that any of us can truly be happy uh, if we are only self-serving individuals. It's only when we can contribute or to give back or to pay forward that we truly feel a sense of peace and accomplishment. Try doing that. I mean, they say the human frequencies are the highest when you're radiating love. When you're spreading love into the world is when you are happiest within, you are without any worry. And that says something about us as a species. Who knows, 500 years from now or 100 years from now, there could be a discovery that says, like, that the billions of atoms in your body operate together to give you form, to give you life, to keep your vitals functioning. Maybe even 10 or 50 years from now, what if we are all members of a larger organism, which is the human species? We just don't know it. I don't think individual cells in the body know that they are individual cells inside a body. What if they start fighting with each other? And it happens, and it creates illness. And I think this is what is happening in society today, when we see everybody wanting a sense of separation, or wanting or separation in the sense that it's ego driven accomplishment, or wanting a sense of belonging, where they cling to a community and even would justify the crimes committed by that community, or murders, or uh, killing of brutal killings of people of other faiths or genders, because of a belief that they have been indoctrinated with. I see this as a reflection of a Sikh society. So I think political alternatives, I don't know, it's a long battle, it's a long fight. And I don't even know, because, it's unlike America, people here can swap sides immediately before and after an election, which is very comical. So I just really want to work on building a social alternative whereby people can come together and truly work towards development. Because I feel this is an effect of colonialism in the long run, where people start to devalue themselves, dehumanize themselves, whether their own appearance or how, the standards of living they're used to. And it is a tough fight. It is a hard one. It's an uphill climb, but I think I really believe that we can truly get there. And that is my only hope. Um, and I also think peace is good for the economy, because the opposite never is. Just like there is no tourism in war-torn countries, or no growth of industry where people do not have peace, I keep appealing to the common sense in everyone around me, saying hate is bad for the economy. That's all I have to say. I hope I made some sense.
Thank you, Richa, for sharing your reflections, and definitely made sense. And I'm sure it has sparked quite a few questions in our Q&A section. And so at this point in the program, we will shift to Q&A. And so I invite all of our panelists to switch their videos on, and we'll have an open discussion. And before we get into the questions submitted by our attendees, we wanted to offer Amina and Samara the opportunity to ask our first questions, and then we will get to our audience questions. So Amina or Samara, if either of you wants to start off, please go ahead.
I can start. My question was regarding the young people who might, feel passionate about particular issues, who might want to fight against injustice. They're there, but they know where to get started. They might feel fearful. What is your advice to those young people? Where can they get started? How can they overcome that fear of being very young and inexperienced? It's kind of to everyone, not to any particular panelist. So whoever wants to take that.
Sure, I can go first. I'll just say, it's one of the things I've noticed in working with young people, both here and in India, is that there is a real desire to make change. There's a real hunger. There's an awareness that the world is far from perfect and that there are lots of problems and we all want to fix them. And so I love that about the younger generation. And I think one of the challenges that I'm seeing is when you're aware of all the problems, you want to fix everything, and you see how everything is interconnected, and you feel like, what's the point of starting with one thing when I want to do everything? And so my advice for starting is to be aware, to recognize that these things are interconnected, but you're only one person. And so it's not your job, it's not your responsibility to fix the entire world, but you can do a little bit. And think of it as training, where you start practicing your own abilities and developing your own abilities to be productive. So think about what your skills are, what you're passionate about, identify one area that you want to focus on, and then find people that you want to work with who can help guide you through those areas so you don't feel like you're doing it on your own. But I think that's for me, as I'm talking to high school and college students, it seems like a good place to get over the paralysis of wanting to do everything and not being able to.
I think that really answers my question well, like not just for other young people, but for me personally, because I do resonate with that, where it's like there's so many problems in the world and you want to help everyone. And it does, I feel like taking it step by step would definitely be helpful. I think Samara has her question next.
So I'm very interested in history, and I would like to know, what are the moments in history that have motivated you? It's not really directed at anyone.
Yeah, I will.
Hi.
Yeah.
Professor Gandhi, you go, please.
No, Richa, it's for you. You please, I want to hear you.
I actually did my honors in history from Delhi University. One of the key reasons was I wanted to understand the present situations in the country a bit better, and I really think it helped me gain a lot of insights. There are key moments in history, I think, that prove to be defining moments, but you don't have to be a student of history to know that. Like specifically, when Columbus thought he discovered India, but it was the New World, it must have been a remarkable moment in history because it changed the world as we know it. When Vasco da Gama entered India, or when even Lord Macaulay imposed English education on the natives of India, which was a colonial state at the time. It is a defining moment in history, and I'm very interested in the identity crisis that happens in most developing countries or countries that have had a history of being colonized. It really does help me understand the world better. It is one of the reasons I'm sitting here talking to you in English, is because of the way things have gone down. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, Samara.
Thank you. Yeah, it does.
So may I make a comment? I think that Nikhil and Richa and Simran and Samara and Amina and all the others are engaged in something very exciting, and I'm thrilled to be admitted to this group in my ancient age. Now, when Simran was speaking about so many options and so many needs that you want to assist with, and that we should focus on one thing if possible, I thought of the COVID experience that we've all had all over the world. And one lesson we learned from COVID for survival was to take one day at a time. Am I right? All of us learned that we have to take one day at a time. And I think that is a good lesson for non-COVID times also. One day at a time and one step at a time is the way to build something solid and enduring.
Great. Thank you both, Samara and Amana, for your questions. And now we will open it up to some questions that have been submitted by our attendees. And so the first question has come in from Vijay. So I will make him a panelist so we can see him and he can ask his question live to all of you. And Vijay, when you start, just please start by introducing your name, your age, and where you're calling in from.
Thanks, Nikhil. My name is Vijayendra Kadlabal. I'm 31-year-old, not so young anymore, but I come from the southern part of India, stay in Bangalore, leading a youth movement called Yuva Shakti. My question was, I'm trying to recall what I had posted. Yeah, so I think my question was more to Professor Gandhi and even to the other panelists of what would be their message to the young population in India and across the world at a time where divisive forces are so widely present, and when we are living between a divisive forces, how can the community or the youth come forward to bring more peace and love to the world? Like, what would your message be to them? Thank you.
So I'd make two simple points. One is that this very difficult situation we face, whether in India or in many other countries, is a situation that other countries have also faced in the past for a very long time. You know, if you look at history, say, take the story of Palestine, take story of China, Tibet, and other places where people have endured restrictions, control, domination for decades and decades and decades. But history has also shown that sometimes after a long time, a change does come. So I take some encouragement from the fact that totalitarian systems, autocracies have come, and they've endured for some time, but in the end, they have gone. So, and I do believe that the conscience of us human beings is a majority in itself. It does not need so many others. And the other thing, other simple thought I have is that when we are all fighting a difficult battle, long battle, and there are many people who are fighting for democracy, for individual freedom in all countries, whether in India, Pakistan, or America, or everywhere, that let us be nicer to one another among those who are fighting for democracy. We get so agitated if our colleagues differ from us in matter A or matter B. Yes, we have this very great foe, enemy to face, totalitarianism, desire to dominate. Many of us are fighting that. Let us be nicer to one another among those who are fighting. And let us realize who our real foe truly is.
Thank you, Professor Gandhi. Would any of our other panelists want to jump in?
Sure, I can. I so appreciate those points and right on the same page with you. I'd like to add something that that Richa pointed to that I think is really powerful, and that is in our current moment, for those of you who are on the call, I imagine you're aware of what's going on in India and elsewhere around authoritarianism, the rise of extremism, right-wing politics. I imagine we're on the same page there. And so, you know, for most audiences, I would say spend some time learning and become aware of what's happening. I don't think that's what we need right now. But what I see among groups like ours is that we spend a lot of time pointing to the problems and criticizing and saying we need to take it apart. And as Richa said, that's true, that's important. And critique is critical. But I think what we fail to do, both in terms of our current work, but also in the modern form of activism, is we fail to think of alternatives, right? We can take things apart, but what are we going to replace them with? What's our vision? What do we value and what do we hold dear? And I actually, you know, I learned this through studying Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism. And one of the really interesting things that he does is he doesn't shy away from being critical about oppressive systems, right? He will call out caste and he will call out sexism, but he doesn't stop there. And I think a lot of us stop there. What we need to do is think about what should we be doing? What systems can we institutionalize? What are some creative ways that we can offer alternatives to replace what's out there? Because like it or not, these structures that we're critical of, they've been there for a long time and they're very powerful. And they're not just going to go away by us pointing our fingers and saying that's wrong. We have to offer something a little bit more concrete and something more sustainable. And I think that's what Richa was pointing to, that I think is really important for us to recognize if we want to make real change.
Thank you all so much. I will now invite another youth attendee, Sanjana Jaiswal, who has a question, I think specifically for Richa. So just one moment and we'll bring Sanjana up.
Hi. So my question is for Richa specifically. I am like passionate about theater and drama and acting. So my question was kind of, how did you, can you talk a bit more about how you were able to use your work and your platform as an actor to promote social change, whether with characters you play or with themes in the movies that you take up?
And Sanjana, can you just let us know your age and where you...
Yeah, sorry. I am 17 and I'm from New York. Okay.
Hi, Sanjana. Thanks for your question. I think it's a really valid and a really important one. One that I sort of asked myself several times when I was a teenager, when I was trying to get into this field and this industry. I actually have a diploma in journalism, and I was sort of caught between two things. And I remember going to a news office where I'd gotten a job, but the bigger story of the day became that there was a Bollywood actor whose bodyguard had sort of roughed somebody up. And so an important, otherwise local news story was dropped for that. So something clicked in my head about it being an instant tool of influence. And I still believe that, you know, it's like when the great players who happen to be Muslim play, you see an overall decline in hatred towards that community. There is a certain othering that happens when you don't see people, brown people, Asian people on screen, when you don't see characters that are flawed, that are struggling, that are imperfect. There is a certain experience of othering. They are separate from us. That happens. One of the key things, I mean, for example, when the current regime came to power, the first thing they did was to ban Pakistani dramas on TV. There used to be a channel called Zindagi. And why would you do that, right? Some sweet little old ladies are watching it in their evening, peeling their potatoes. They like the language, they like the culture. It's very similar. People are talking the same way. The house setup is the same. They just happen to be Pakistani or slash Muslim. And these people were from Delhi and Amritsar and Lucknow and Meerut. So that I feel is a very, when you symbolically remove things from your vision, you decrease their voice, their presence, you decrease their humanity. Why do people feel all these crimes or the persistent hate in society rises because of xenophobia? Because we do not understand one another. And I feel like if I can play characters that I can humanize everybody, that maybe a commercial sex worker who was sold into sexual slavery at the age of 8, and someone somewhere has watched that film and is kinder to a woman who knows, who happens to be in the same job, then I would think that my job is done in terms of the work that I do on screen, because it's fiction. And as for my real life, I really do hope to live by example. And that is why I'm consistently trying to refine my own strategy. I was also really angry a few years ago, and wanted to be extremely violent, wanted to kick somebody all the time, slap them, punch them. I couldn't stand certain people when they appeared on TV. And not to say that those feelings have entirely disappeared. I would be superhuman if I said that was true.
Oops, looks like Richa might be frozen. But while she comes back, I was wondering, even though this question was for Richa, Simran, you could maybe speak a little bit to the same theme of the importance of seeing, other people or people from your own community in media, in the things which we're consuming, and what it means to create space in the way that you've done through your children's book. So maybe if you have a few thoughts to share just on that similar theme.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I love what Richa had to say and found it resonant. It speaks to a lot of what I felt growing up and still feel a lot of ways. And I think, the part around representation that's felt has become common for our understanding is to recognize representation as windows and mirrors, right? We'll say representation is about mirrors so that people in our communities can see themselves as heroes. And that's really powerful. And I didn't have that growing up, and I still don't really have that now. And that's part of what I wanted to change. But the other side to that is to say representation is about windows, where you let other people in to see your humanity. And that, I think, for so many communities, that feels even more powerful in some ways, because for many of us, it's a matter of survival, right? When you are constantly vilified and shown and dehumanized and shown as the enemy, representation can be an antidote for that, to show people that, this is not the only way, that you should be understanding people who look like this or who belong to this part of the world or your country or speak this language. And so I think especially in a context where we are increasingly seeing one another as enemies for different aspects of our identities, it can be a really powerful tool to break down. Media can be a really powerful tool to break down those stereotypes, the ones that we don't even know are being built in our heads. And so for all of you who are paying attention and growing up in a world where media is more accessible than it ever has been before, there's a lot more content, there are a lot more channels, there are a lot more platforms. Like all of you have your own media accounts and platforms. And so to think about using those as tools for social change, very much, I mean, you might not have the the sort of credentials as Professor Gandhi or the platform as Richa, but you will all be able to cultivate your own voice and make some sort of impact through the platforms that you have. So go for it.
Thanks so much, Simran and Richa. We have just a few minutes left, but hopefully we can squeeze in a couple more questions from our audience. At this point, I will bring up Prince Raj, who has asked a question. So Prince will be joining us on camera.
Nikhil?
Yes, Richa.
I just wanted to say I got locked out before. I don't know why that's been happening all evening, so I'd like to apologize for leaving that midway.
Thank you for joining back. Yeah, apologies about the tech difficulties, but it looks like we have Prince here. So Prince, please unmute yourself and let us know your age, where you're joining us from, and your question. Prince, it looks like you're muted. Yeah.
Hello everyone, myself Prince Raj from Jharkhand. I am 16 years old. My question is that how can we address transgender community? Sir, since beginning when I was first travel on train, what I see that few transgender come to beg us, but since the previous year, as the COVID outbreak has come, most of the trains have been shut down, and almost all transports as have been shut down. So how they will be living right now, transgender community? How can we help them? Thanks.
Can I go? I don't have a tip, but I have a Prince.
Please go ahead.
Can you hear me? आप मुझे सुन पा रहे हैं?
Yes, ma'am.
Prince, we covered a story of you last month where we tracked a group of youngsters in Kashmir. And when the lockdown happens, you must remember Kashmir has had a lockdown practically since 2019. तो वहाँ का lockdown 2 साल का हो गया. अब इस साल तीसरे साल का lockdown. तो वहाँ के जो ट्रांसजेंडर कम्युनिटी थे, जो मेहंदी लगाते थे या शादियों में मेकअप का काम करते थे या दूसरी तरह से पैसे कमाते थे, उनकी लाइवलीहुड पूरी तरह से बंद हो गई. तो वहाँ के कुछ यूथ ने एक कैंप ऑर्गेनाइज किया और अब वो दिन के 100 फैमिलीज को खाना खिलाते हैं. कुछ लोग जुड़ गए साथ में. वहाँ उनका नाम है मीर जुन्नेद खुशी करके एक ट्रांसजेंडर कम्युनिटी की रिप्रेजेंटेटिव हैं. वो सब साथ में जुड़ के अब एक दूसरे की मदद कर रहे हैं, डोनेशन लेते हैं, चंदा इकट्ठा करते हैं और लोगों के घर तक अनाज, तेल, चावल, दाल, ये सारी बेसिक चीजें पहुंचाते हैं. तो अगर आप अपने आसपास देखें, हो सकता है ऐसी कोई कम्युनिटी, ऐसा कोई इनिशिएटिव चल रहा हो विच यू कैन ज्वाइन and with your voice on social media you can reach out and crowdfund and make sure कि उनके घर तक राशन पहुंचे. and if you would like, आप मुझे टैग करके ये बात कहेंगे. तो अगर आपको अपने एरिया में, झारखंड में, जहां से भी आप हैं, if you find a community like this, I will be happy to amplify your request and help you.
Thank you, ma'am. So, what government can do, ma'am? Till now, I haven't seen any step from government. So, what government can do in this? What do you think?
I think कि हर स्टेट में the policies are different and the government is different. There have been 2 ministers that have been elected into the Tamil Nadu government who from the transgender community this year. So it depends on the state and the party or the government that is in power. But I'd urge you to start where you can. Yes, government can do, but you can probably give them suggestions. If the government is doing a lot of things or not doing a lot of things, and this is not high on their priority, you can bring their attention to this.
Great. Thank you so much, Prince, for your,
By social media.
and thank you to
Yes.
Richa. We are just at the hour, but I hope we can squeeze in just one more question. We have from attendee from Yuva Shakti Bihar, ER Nijesh. So I will promote them to panelists, and then we will conclude following their question. Should be joining in just a minute.
Nikhil, you're muted.
Sorry, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Nirjesh, this side. And I am just sharing. I am just want to know if what's going on. I am not listening clearly and not able to understand where we all are here right now. Please make me understand.
Sorry, could you just clarify your question?
You are not getting my question?
No, I don't think. Could you just ask your question again?
I am not clear on which topic we are discussing, because I joined late. Sorry for that. So please just share with me, and I will say something which I want to share with all of you.
Sure. Yeah. The topic of this conversation is on youth power for social justice. And so we're just having a Q&A session with the attendees. And so if you have a question that you have as a young person for our attendees, you can ask, and then we will conclude the webinar afterwards.
Okay. Okay. First, I am listening. After that, I will share.
Okay. Thank you. And you can also write to us afterwards, and we'll pass on your question to our panelists for sure.
Thanks a lot. Okay.
Okay, so I think we have passed our 1 hour mark. I know that there were many other attendees who had questions. There are literally dozens of questions in the Q&A box. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to get to everyone's question today, but I hope that we can keep working with all of our 3 panelists. This has been a really exciting hour, and I hope it'll result in some reflections and some inspiration for all of our young people on the webinar. Again, if you weren't able to get to your question, we apologize, but please write to us at info@hindusforhumanrights.org, and we will absolutely pass on your question and connect you to our panelists. I just want to express our immense gratitude to Professor Gandhi, to Simran Jeet Singh, and to Richa Chadha for taking some time out of their mornings and evenings to join us from the US and from India. We really appreciate all the work that the 3 of you are doing to promote social justice and change within each of your respective industries and fields. And I know for me, this has been a really inspiring and reflective time, and I hope it's been the same for Amana, Samara, all of the youth attendees who had questions. So with that, we will conclude for today, and thank you all for joining us once again.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.